I should have known the night would break open the moment I stepped into my parents' kitchen. The voices from the dining room floated in and out forced laughter, the kind people use when a holiday demands it. I opened my laptop on the counter, intending to check the live valuation update from my firm. Sterling and Vale. One quick glance at the dashboard. Then I would return to playing the dutiful daughter. I barely noticed my brother, Colton, until he spoke behind me. "Forgot you even brought that old thing," he said, nodding toward the screen. "It's work," I murmured. "Give me 1 minute." I stepped away to check the roast in the oven. When I turned back, Colton had shifted closer to the laptop, pretending to reach for a bottle of wine. His eyes flicked across the numbers anyway. Total appraised inventory, contracted assets, projected revenue about $4.7 million in all. His jaw tightened. He lifted his phone as casually as someone scratching an itch. By the time I returned to the counter, he had already stepped back, wearing that familiar smirk that meant trouble was coming. I snapped the laptop shut, but the damage was done. At dinner, just as everyone settled in and my mother lifted her glass, Colton rose to his feet. "Before we eat," he announced, "I think the family deserves to know something." The table quieted. 20 faces turned toward him. "Aubrey's been hiding money. A lot of it." My mother laughed, bright and brittle. "Colton, stop being dramatic." He held up his phone, the screen glowing with the photo he had taken. $4.7 million. That dramatic enough. The room froze. Forks stalled mid-air. Then the whispers started. My mother's smile vanished. You let us struggle while you sat on this." I swallowed hard, every muscle tightening. "It is not cash. It is my company." "That is even worse," she snapped. "Colton needs stability. He needs help. If you really cared about this family." "Enough," I said quietly. Everyone stared, waiting for a fight, but I did not give them one. And if you have ever lived through a moment like this, where a whole room decides who you should be and what you should give, stay with me. There is more to this story than a single Christmas blow-up. The silence around the table pressed in on me, but it was nothing compared to the silence I grew up in. It had followed me all my life. Starting the day my brother arrived 2 months early, and the world bent itself around him. I heard my mother's voice even now, layered over the present. "Lower your voice. Aubrey, Colton needs rest. Do not touch that. Aubrey, Colton is fragile. If you feel sick, go to your grandmother's. We cannot risk anything." I spent half my childhood at Grandma Evelyn's small apartment, sitting by her sewing machine as she worked late into the night. Back then, I thought it was an adventure. She would hand me fabric scraps and say, "You deserve more than the quiet they give you." I did not understand what she meant until years later. At home, the rules were different. My achievements disappeared into the wallpaper, while my brother's smallest effort drew applause. The day he brought home a B-, my father taped it to the fridge like it was a medal. When I scored in the top 1% on a national exam, my mother barely looked up from helping Colton with homework. "That is nice." "Honey," she said. "Now pass me his binder." The memory tightened around my ribs as I sat at the table on Christmas Eve. Everyone still staring at me like I had betrayed them. Colton leaned back in his chair, satisfied. "Some of us had to work harder to get noticed," he said. I met his eyes. "Some of us learned to stop trying." Colton's words hovered in the air, but they did not cut the way they used to. I had spent too many years learning how to survive without being seen. I thought of the night I opened my acceptance letter from the University of Michigan full scholarship, full ride, a future I had carved out myself. I remembered carrying the letter into the kitchen, holding it out like proof I mattered. My mother barely blinked. "Michigan. That is far. Who will help Colton if you leave?" "I will manage," I said. She gave a soft, pitying smile. "You always say that. No one offered to drive me to campus. No one even asked when I was leaving. It was Aunt Janice who stepped in at the last minute, jingling her car keys. "Get your bags. Sweetheart, I have got you. On the drive." She handed me an envelope. Inside was $1,000. "I sold my old sewing machine," she said softly. "Your grandmother wanted you to have a start. That money ended up being the difference between groceries and going hungry my first month. It was love, quiet and unannounced. In Chicago, after college, I found my first job at an auction house. My manager, Mr. Harrington, watched me examine a Victorian brooch under a loupe. "You see everything," he said. "People who grow up ignored learn to notice what others miss." Those words became my spine. I stayed late, took every certification course I could find, learned the anatomy of gemstones until it felt like learning a language no one else spoke. When I opened Sterling and Vale authenticators 5 years later, no one in my family even knew I had left the auction house. On Sundays, I showed up in worn sweaters and carried an old tote bag because it was easier than explaining success to people who only respected struggle when it belonged to someone else. My mother would pour wine and say, "Your brother is thinking of applying to grad school. Maybe you can help him with the process. You are good with details." Details. That was all I had ever been to them. I looked around the Christmas table now at the people who never asked how I survived, let alone succeeded. They stared at me like I had stolen something from them, when the truth was simpler. I had built a life in the space they left empty. The Christmas table blurred for a moment, and another memory pushed its way in sharp, recent, impossible to ignore. It had started with a phone call from my mother a few weeks earlier. "Honey," she began, using the voice she saved for news she expected me to fix. "Your brother is applying for an executive MBA. It is expensive, but he deserves the best." I kept my tone even. "How expensive you will see it in the email." I highlighted the important part. The email arrived moments later, $68,400, circled 3 times in bright red, as if urgency alone could make it mine. When I did not respond immediately, she filled the silence. "Colton has always carried so much. You know that. Helping him now is the least we can ask." The least, I repeated. "He needs a chance at a real future." "Aubrey, you already have one." There it was. The truth she had never said out loud. My success made me responsible, and his failures made him deserving. I stared at the invoice for a long time, the red circles pulsing like accusations. That night, in my office at Sterling and Vale, I closed the email and whispered to myself, "No more." A decision formed quietly, almost gently. I would host Christmas this year. 1 meal, 1 room, 1 chance to finally see my family clearly. Hosting Christmas was supposed to feel empowering. Instead, it felt like bracing for a storm I already knew was coming. I hired a caterer I trusted from corporate events. "Keep it simple, keep it elegant," I told him. The bill came to a little over $3,000, but I did not blink. I had spent far more just to keep the peace in this family. When my parents arrived, my mother scanned the setup like a critic entering a gallery. "You did all this?" she asked, her tone light but edged. "I wanted to." I said, "You are not taking out loans for this, right? These things add up. I can handle it." I told her. She gave a doubtful hum, the kind that made me feel 12 again. My father wandered toward the dining room. "Looks fancy. Aubrey, almost too fancy. People will think you are showing off." "I am not," I said quietly. Colton arrived last. He took off his new coat, supposedly thrifted, and draped it over a chair like he wanted everyone to admire it. "Nice spread," he said. "Big upgrade from whatever frozen stuff you used to microwave." I laughed once, softly. "Merry Christmas, Colton." He shrugged. "Just saying. No need to get sensitive." The caterer began serving. My family filled the seats around the table, smiling too wide, speaking too loudly, performing the version of happy they believed holidays demanded. My mother lifted her glass. "Here is to family," she declared. Everyone echoed her except me. I lifted my glass, but I did not drink, for the first time in my life. I wondered what this night would look like when the performance finally cracked open. Dessert had just hit the table when I slipped back into the kitchen to check the live valuation I had been monitoring earlier. Sterling and Vale had a significant overseas appraisal pending, and the numbers updated every few minutes. I opened my laptop, scanned the dashboard total contracted assets, projected revenue for the next quarter, inventory value approaching $4.7 million, and exhaled a single minute. That was all I needed. I stepped out to ask the caterer a question, leaving the laptop open. When I returned, Colton was already there. He stood too still, too casual, one hand on the counter and the other holding his phone. The glow of my screen reflected in his eyes. He did not even pretend this time. "Interesting numbers," he said. My pulse tapped once. Hard. "Close the laptop." He took a picture instead. "Relax. Family should know things like this." I reached for the laptop, but he pulled his phone out of my reach and walked out of the kitchen with the confidence of a man carrying leverage. By the time I followed him into the dining room, he was already rising from his chair. "Before we open gifts," he announced, tapping his glass, "there is something everyone deserves to hear." My mother groaned. "Colton, do not start." "Oh, I am not starting anything," he said. "Aubrey already did." And then he held up his phone. The room fell silent as the image glowed across the table, my dashboard, my valuation, my work, reduced to a screenshot in my brother's hand. My mother's voice cracked. 4.7 million. My father stared at me as if I had robbed him. "You never said a word. Not one word. It is my company," I said. "Not a pile of cash. That is worse." My mother snapped. "You let us struggle while you hoarded opportunity." "I did not hoard anything." Colton leaned back, satisfied. "I told you she could afford the executive MBA." My chest tightened. That invoice was not my responsibility. "It is family," my father said. "Family takes care of each other." I laughed once, quietly. "I have been taking care of all of you for years." My mother slammed her napkin onto the table. "Then keep doing it. Colton deserves stability. He deserves a future. You have always been fine on your own." I felt the words land cold, precise, familiar. "You are saying," I asked softly, "that because I am the one who survived alone, I owe the ones who never stood alone at all?" My mother lifted her chin. "Help your brother. It is the least you can do." Colton looked straight at me. "You owe this family, Aubrey. Start acting like it." The room closed in around me, 20 faces, all waiting for me to surrender. Instead, I set my wine glass down and folded my hands. "You are right about one thing," I said, meeting Colton's gaze. "You do deserve something." A flicker of triumph lit his face. "Just not from me." Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. My mother whispered my name like a warning, but I stood up, calm and steady, and walked away from the table, away from the noise, away from the life they kept trying to claim. The cold air outside hit my skin like honesty. The snow cracked under my boots as I stepped into the night, leaving their voices behind me muffled, frantic, powerless. For the first time, I did not look back. By the next morning, my phone buzzed so violently it nearly slid off the nightstand. Missed calls stacked on the screen. My mother, my father, Colton, unfamiliar numbers that had to be relatives. The voicemails came first. My mother's voice trembled with fury. "How could you walk out like that? Your brother is humiliated. Fix it." My father followed. "You embarrassed this family. Call us back immediately." Then Colton, calm, controlled, dangerous. "You made this worse than it had to be. Own your mistake." I sat on the edge of my bed, letting their words wash through me without sinking in. A notification popped up. Colton had posted something online. I opened it only because I already knew what I would find. Funny how some people forget who supported them when they finally touch real money. No names, of course. He did not have the spine for direct hits, but the comments filled in the blanks. Old classmates, distant cousins. She really hid that much. Must be nice to hoard success. Imagine treating your family like that. I set the phone down and breathed in slowly. Another message lit the screen. My mother again, this time from a blocked number. Aubrey, please. Your brother cannot take this kind of stress. You owe him more than this. You owe all of us. Her voice cracked on the last word, turning guilt into a weapon she had polished for years. I finally answered with the only truth I had left. I owe none of you anything, I said. Then I ended the call and let the silence settle, heavy and unfamiliar, but mine. 3 days passed before the next blow landed. I was in my office at Sterling and Vale, reviewing a set of appraisal reports, when the receptionist buzzed through. Aubrey, there is a family here to see you. A pause. They say they are your family. My stomach tightened. Send them to the lobby. I will come out. The moment the elevator doors opened, I saw them, my mother gripping her purse like a shield, my father red-faced and breathing hard, and Colton wearing oversized sunglasses indoors, as if that could hide the panic beneath his arrogance. My mother plastered on a brittle smile. Aubrey, sweetheart, we are here to work this out. I stepped closer, steadying myself. I was not aware anything needed working out. We decided what is fair, my father said. His voice carried the certainty of a man who had never questioned his entitlement. You will set up a trust. I blinked. A trust. For your brother. He continued. $1,800,000 should cover his executive MBA and the down payment on a home. And $600,000 for us. For everything we sacrificed. The words hit me like a slap, less for the numbers and more for how casually they claimed them. You are serious, I said. My mother bristled. We are not asking for the moon. Aubrey, this is family responsibility. Your brother needs stability. Colton finally pushed his sunglasses up. I need a future. You already have one. Do the right thing. I felt something inside me settle, not anger, not grief, but clarity. Behind me, footsteps approached. Maya Tran, my head of authentication, stopped at my shoulder. She did not say a word. She did not need to. Her presence alone felt like a lifeline. This is my office, I said quietly. My business, my work. You do not get to walk in here and demand a price. You will not talk to us like strangers. My mother snapped. You made yourselves strangers. I replied, my voice steady. I just learned to accept it. Colton stepped forward. You owe us. Aubrey, without this family, you would be nothing. Maya exhaled sharply, but I lifted a hand to stop her. I looked each of them in the eyes. No, I said. Without you, I learned to survive. Without you, I learned to build. And now, without you, I will finally be free. My mother surged toward me. You are throwing your parents out. Yes, I said, and I should have done it years ago. I turned to the security guard standing near the elevator. Please escort them out. My father sputtered. We will disown you. You did, I said softly. Long before today. The guard guided them toward the elevator. My mother yelled something I no longer cared to hear. Colton stared at me like he could will me back into the girl who once chased their approval. The elevator doors closed on all of them. Maya touched my arm. You good. I swallowed the burn in my chest. For the first time. I think so. That night, after the lobby confrontation, I sat on my couch with the lights off, letting the quiet stretch until it felt like breath again. Then my phone began vibrating voicemail after voicemail, each one a variation of the same script. My mother's voice trembled with manufactured hurt. Aubrey. You cannot mean what you said. Your brother is devastated. We are your family. You cannot just cut us off. My father followed, deeper, angrier. You crossed a line today. Fix it before this goes too far. Then Colton, always controlled, always performing. You embarrassed us in a public place. At least be an adult about this and call me back. I placed the phone face down, but the notifications kept coming text after text, each more desperate than the last. Another voicemail appeared from a blocked number. My mother again. You cannot erase blood. Your grandmother would be ashamed of what you are doing. That, finally, made me reach for my phone but not to call her back. I dialed Grandma Evelyn. She answered on the second ring. I heard, she said gently. You all right, sweetheart? They said you would be ashamed of me. Her laugh was soft, warm, certain. I am proud of you. It is about time you stopped letting them take pieces of you. The fracture inside me steadied. I opened my banking app and scrolled to the monthly transfer labeled Family Support $2,200. My thumb hovered for one long breath, then pressed cancel. The next call I made was to my attorney. I need a cease and desist. I said, harassment and defamation. He did not ask for details. I will send it by morning. When I ended the call, the silence that followed felt unfamiliar, but finally, blessedly, mine. The cease and desist went out the next morning. By the time the letter reached my parents' mailbox, their calls had already shifted from outrage to silence, not the kind that punished me, but the kind that admitted defeat. Weeks passed. Sterling and Vale grew busier. Maya knocked on my office door one afternoon, holding a stack of new contracts. 3 clients from New York, 2 from Dubai, she said, all asking for you. I skimmed the papers. We can take them. Expand Milwaukee's workload if needed. She smiled. Already handled. Moments like that reminded me how different life felt when the only people around me chose to be there. A month later, I moved into a loft with high ceilings and a small vault room built exactly to my specifications. On my first night there, a package waited at the door. Inside was a photograph of Grandma Evelyn sitting beside her old jewelry cabinet and a handwritten note. Proud of you, sweetheart. You finally learned to keep what is yours. I held the note for a long time. It felt like a blessing, quiet, sturdy, real. Then came December again. Snow drifted past the windows the same way it had 1 year earlier, but everything else had changed. No invitations, no demands, no expectations. Just my own breath and the steady hum of a home that finally felt like mine. I ordered takeout, poured a glass of wine, and sat across from the empty chair at my table. The silence around me no longer carried judgment. It simply existed, steady and soft. I lifted my glass. To peace, I said, and to finally choosing myself. The words settled in the room like a promise. And if you have ever been the forgotten one, the helper, the quiet observer holding a family together while they pretend not to notice, stay with me. Stories like ours matter more than people think. If this one spoke to you, share it. Let someone else feel seen, and stay for the next chapter of what it means to reclaim your own life.